Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow humans, compatriots, friends from across the planet, I am Nikhil Parekh. In this video, I shall be talking about my book titled You Die, I Die, Love Poems Part 2, as well as I shall be giving you recitation of different poems from this book of mine. So let me commence with an introduction to this book of mine. About the poetry book. This book, which has 50 differently titled poems, is actually part 2 of the book titled You Die, I Die, Love Poems, 1600 pages. Poems symbolizing the immortality of love and at times its fickleness. Parekh takes the reader through a paradise naturally embellished with the ingredients of eternal romance and its sporadic failures. As they say, life and death are two sides of the coin. Similarly, with every true anecdote of love, there also comes fretful divorce, a thing which has been most sensitively described throughout this great collection of poems for the heart. Written and dipped in each ingredient of his passionate blood, Parekh comes out with startling revelations about the truest of love stories and their failures. Each verse has been delicately intertwined with the boundless aspects of relationships, romance, cheating, betrayal, and goes on to prove that immortal love towers over every shattered heart. A start to finish with some of the most heart-rendering love poems ever. This makes a great collection for every true lover, breathing and desiring to be loved on earth and beyond. This collection of poems aims at perpetually uniting every heart on this universe in the spirit of immortal love and friendship. Because these are the two quintessential ingredients to lead life till its last breath. Irrespective of whatever color, faith, or religion, it is only the rainbow of love which can transform the ghastliest monsters and perpetrators of humanity into peaceful lovers. Therefore, this book inexhaustibly endeavors to speak and preach the language of love even after its last embossed alphabet. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now commence to give you recitation of 4 different poems from this book. These poems are titled Incomplete, What the Entire Wealth Couldn't Purchase, Love at First Sight, and One Must Learn. Of course, at any juncture of victoriously mesmerizing existence, you can purchase this book of mine from Amazon.com in the ebook format. So here is a recitation of my poem titled Incomplete from this book of mine. Every cloud in the cosmos was incomplete without rain. The water that instilled signs of life in the dead after cascading down. Every wave in the sea was incomplete without raw salt. The granules of tanginess embedded that granted it a ravishing aroma. Every pearl incarcerated within the slimy oyster was incomplete without its shine. The scintillating glow that crowned it, the king of all gems. The scintillating glow that crowned it, the king of all gems. Every flower protruding from the soil was incomplete without its petals. The intricate falls of crimson that inundated the air with a rejuvenating fragrance. Every bird soaring in the sky was incomplete without its wings. Every bird soaring in the sky was incomplete without its wings. The slender flaps of skin that engendered it to fly. Every patch of earth was incomplete without mushy grass. The tendrils of enchanting green which voluptuously tingled the feet. Every mountain was incomplete without its summit. The towering peaks that profoundly distinguished it from the ordinary lumps of mud. Every lion transgressing through the dense jungle was incomplete without its growl. The thunderous sound that petrifies all animals in vicinity to the last bone of their spine. Every desert was incomplete without its sands. The golden crystals of slippery soil that flew rampantly in the air with the rustic breeze. Every star in the sky was incomplete without its twinkle. The omnipotent shimmer diffusing from its demeanor. Every dungeon was incomplete without darkness. The appalling gloom that encompassed it in entirety. Every cactus extruding from scorched mud was incomplete without its thorns. The acrimonious bristles which stabbed like infinite burnt needles when caressed. Every snake slithering through the marshy swamps was incomplete without its venom. The poison impregnated in its fangs that strangulated its victim to ghastly death. Every fire burning was incomplete without its flames. The leaping wisps of blistering smoke that wafted out as an aftermath. Every man was incomplete without a moustache. The black bush of hard hair embodied stringently to his lips. Every temple was incomplete without God. Every temple was incomplete without God. The omnipresent aura inhabiting each space that created us all. Every mother was incomplete without her child, the innocuous infant that suckled milk from her chest. Every heart was incomplete without its vivacious beat, the throbbing pulse embedded that unleashed life. The throbbing pulse embedded that unleashed life. And every life was incomplete without love. The person who made it feel special, the person who made it feel a reason to be blissfully alive. And every life was incomplete without love. The person who made it feel special, the person who made it feel the reason to be blissfully alive. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now be giving you a recitation of my poem titled Love at First Sight from this book of mine. I didn't know who she was. What was her veritable name? I had no idea how she looked. The most minuscule perception of her shadow. I was completely oblivious to the color of her hair, the shade of mascara she applied to her eyes. I didn't know where she lived, the slightest of insinuation regarding her religion. I was wholesomely unaware of the cadence of her voice, the tone in which she spoke. I miserably dithered in guessing her true age, wasn't apprised the least of the course she was studying. I failed to conceive whether she was rich or indigent, the hierarchy that possessed her. I never could imagine the silhouettes of her lips, the freckles prevalent in tandem on her face. I hadn't the slightest premonition about her nature, whether she was tranquil or loved to menacingly shout. I couldn't contemplate the people she liked, the hobbies that entrenched her life in her pastime. I had never visualized her stature, whether she was tall or abnormally midget. I didn't know the rings that adorned her fingers, the texture of the fabric that embellished her countenance. I was at a profound loss of words. I was at a profound loss of words to describe her dreams. I was at a profound loss of her words to describe her dreams, the things which she fantasized about the most. I appeared imbecile when someone queried me about her looks, whether she was ominous as the diabolical monster, or was a replica of godly white, I hadn't the slightest idea of the food she liked, the appetizing delicacies that titillated her appetite. I was badly befuddled, at a loss for words, when quizzed about the places she adored, the animals she liked. I couldn't cogitate the least regarding her hair, whether it cascaded down till the floor, or she had it as short as a man. I didn't know where she last came from, the next step she was going to tread in town. Yet when we met, banging inadvertently against each other on the crowded street, our eyes seemed locked till infinite times. The words "I love you" just mumbled out themselves, and we were proud to proclaim that it was indeed love at first sight. Yet when we met, banging inadvertently against each other on the crowded street, our eyes seemed locked till infinite times. The words "I love you" just mumbled out themselves, and we were proud to proclaim that it was indeed love at first sight. That it was indeed love at first sight. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now give you a recitation of my poem titled "What the Entire Wealth Couldn't Purchase," from this book of mine. So here is the recitation. What the entire palace wasn't able to offer, with its towering rooms studded with scintillating jewels, was imparted by the dingy little seaside hut with swirling waves of the ocean, intermittently submerging it with coats of rejuvenating spray. What the entire pool of water wasn't able to offer, with mesmerizing fountains cascading all over, was imparted by the miserly waterfall, pacifying the thirst of wanderers in the blistering currents of summer. What the entire air conditioner wasn't able to offer, gargantuan coolers blowing at full velocity refrained from providing, was imparted by a single draught of wind drifting with the rustling branches of the forest, inundating your senses with a serene calm. What the entire electric bulb wasn't able to offer, with a barrage of lights flickering incessantly throughout the day, was imparted by solitary rays of the sun, the tenacity in its fire blazing through the corridors of gloomy space. What the entire magic wasn't able to offer, shows portraying the same held in ostentatious halls in an ambience of superfluous pomp, was imparted by the mystical mountain, the echoes reverberating loud and enigmatic through its unfathomably deep gorge. What the entire barrel of wine wasn't able to offer, sparkling mugs of beer and elixir miserably dithered to produce, was imparted by a single stream of salubrious milk, oozing painstakingly from the belly of the sacrosanct cow. What the entire bottle of scent wasn't able to offer, the plethora of blends floundered in making the aroma evoke, was imparted by a single rose, with the redolence wafting from its petals, drowning you in waves of immortal euphoria. What the entire orphanage wasn't able to offer, the delinquent nurses deviated from doing, was imparted by the impeccable mother, the gentle passion in her palms putting the child to blissful sleep. What the entire thesaurus on religion wasn't able to offer, the sanctimonious priests on umpteenth occasions wavered to deliver, was imparted by the omniscient creator, the magnetism in his eyes solving all quandaries besieging life, and what the entire wealth in this world wasn't able to offer, the dungeons replete with glittering gold and silver failed to imprison, and what the entire wealth in this world wasn't able to offer, the dungeons replete with glittering gold and silver failed to imprison, was imparted by your beloved, that every draught of her breath granting you 1,000 lives, that every beat of her heart passionately whispering in your ears to be alive, that every draught of her breath granting you 1,000 lives, that every beat of her heart passionately whispering in your ears to be alive. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now give you a recitation of my poem titled One Must Learn. So here is the recitation of this poem of mine. In order to taste the sweet kernel of coconut, one must learn to break open its obdurate shell. In order to taste the sweet kernel of coconut, one must learn to break open its obdurate shell. In order to experience the ravishing aroma of waves, one must learn to tenaciously swim in the choppy waters. In order to imbibe the splendor of the desert, one must learn to traverse audaciously on the blistering hot silver sands. One must learn to traverse audaciously on the blistering hot silver sands. In order to relish the coolness of ice, one must learn how to scrupulously masticate it. In order to savor the flavor of milk, one must learn to adroitly squeeze it from blossoming cow teats. In order to enjoy the scent of lotus flower, one must learn to bathe in a pond replete with a curry of slushy mud, blended commensurately with creepers sprawling in all directions. In order to hear strident tunes of music, one must learn to keep his ears in close affinity with the rustic country discotheque. In order to bask in pure light, one must learn to sit perseveringly under fiery golden rays of the sun. In order to bask in pure light, one must learn to sit perseveringly under fiery golden rays of the sun. In order to extract exorbitant amounts of gold, one must learn to dig till unfathomable depths. One must learn to dig till unfathomable depths. With hostile blade of pickaxe intermittently bracing against the knee. In order to uninhibitedly smile, one must learn to flex one's lips profoundly. In order to uninhibitedly smile, one must learn to flex one's lips profoundly, stretching the cheeks as far as possible. In order to sip delectable tea, one must learn to burn his taste buds profusely. As the steaming liquid came in proximity with the tongue. In order to witness exuberant wails of an innocuous infant, one must learn to deliver the same after undergoing months of painstaking agony. In order to witness exuberant wails of an innocuous infant, one must learn to deliver the same after undergoing months of painstaking agony. In order to sketch the mesmerizing shapes of the hills, one must learn to commensurately blend root color. Vivaciously swishing the brush on sprawling sheets of plain white canvas. In order to envisage celestial fairies and angels, one must learn to exert the tendons of his brain to fullest capacity and then dream. In order to get bountiful crops, one must learn to sow the right proportion of salubrious seeds. In order to make the morbid surface of walls sparkle, one must learn to whitewash them with mammoth chunks of chalk powder and paint. One must learn to whitewash them with mammoth chunks of chalk powder and paint. In order to feel tangy perspiration trickle down the nape, in order to feel tangy perspiration trickle down the nape, one must learn to clamber up the mountain barefoot in sweltering waves of heat. In order to survive, one must learn to stand unflinching against the hostile vagaries of this world, prove his true mettle in every sphere of life. In order to survive, one must learn to stand unflinching against the hostile vagaries of this world, prove his true mettle in every sphere of life. And in order to love, one must learn to unselfishly sacrifice, wholesomely dedicate his mind, body and soul to the deity he reveres, the person who made him feel every unveiling minute of the day that he was breathing, he was alive. And in order to love, one must learn to unselfishly sacrifice, wholesomely dedicate his mind, body and soul to the deity he reveres, the person who made him feel every unveiling minute of the day that he was breathing, he was alive. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, my compatriots, fellow humans from across the planet, it truly was a victorious privilege for me to have given this poetry recitation to you. From the innermost realm of my heart, I hope you have liked this video. At any juncture of symbiotic existence, at any stage of mesmerizing life, you can of course purchase this book of mine from Amazon.com. Thank you for listening to me.